Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Raw Reaction series. The day after, the night before, where Arsenal drew 0-0 against Brighton at the Amex Stadium. A game in which I know frustrated a hell of a lot of people. I saw quite a bit of negative reaction after the game, which is, understandable considering the fact that we come off the back of three defeats, 3 wins, and then going into that game, you've got yourself quite hyped. There was a lot of positivity around the result, and that came across in a lot of our predictions. There are things that I'm going to criticize. There are things that I'm going to praise. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to lose my head, as I've seen so many other people do, unfortunately, because quite frankly, to use that game, for instance, as a reason to say jump off any kind of Arteta bandwagon that had built up over the last 2 to 3 weeks, it's just silly. I mean, you guys know my position, and it still is what it is. My position was that I felt that a change of manager after the Villarreal defeat was the right decision, and it's good. I said it would take time for me to jump back on boards, kind of the train of Arteta's process. And after the Spurs game, I was very much right. This is so much better. This is what I want to see. I can see a system. I can see a style. I can see what we're trying to do. Now, just because the Brighton game wasn't great, and just because the Brighton game wasn't what I wanted to see, doesn't mean I'm all of a sudden going, oh, there you go. Look, that's what we get under Arteta. Look at that. Look what happened. No, because that would be ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. To just ignore everything that's happened over the last 2 to 3 weeks because of a 0-0 draw away at a very decent Brighton side. I'm not going to lose my head about that. We're going to go into some of the things that I think were wrong. It's not like I'm not going to criticize Arteta, because there were things that were wrong. And certainly there were some really poor performances from specific players as well that we'll talk about, that I don't think you can pin on Arteta either. But we'll go into all of that, and we'll get your thoughts and we'll get your theories. Good morning to everybody in the chat box. Thank you for joining me. As always, 8 a.m. every single day. Thank you so much for you guys to make this part of your morning routine. As I've said already, please do drop a like on today's video and subscribe to the Gooner Talk if you haven't already. There'll be more content for you coming over the international break. As always, we'll be doing plenty more updates on how our players are getting on loan, and looking, of course, back to the Brighton game in the TGT podcast. So you'll still be able to get your Arsenal fix, even though Arsenal aren't actually playing. We'll be getting we're getting through plenty of your comments today, and going through how you feel about the game yesterday. There won't be the usual presentation that there usually is for the news show, because this is just a Raw Reaction show straight after, less than 24 hours after the game. So let me go through the positives. Let's start with the positives. And guys, if you have a positive, I'd like you to throw it into the chat box now. That's what I want to see first of all, and then we'll go through some of the criticisms in a little bit. But tell me what you felt was good about yesterday's performance, because I thought the way we defended was excellent. Like people talk about the 20+ shots that Brighton had, but the shots that they were having were from so unlikely to score positions because we limited them to those. I think I can think of 2 or 3 chances that I think you could say were, where they should be scoring. The Dan Burn header from the cross in the first half, the cross for Neil Maupay that Ramsdale did amazingly well to stop. And to be honest, I said 2 or 3. I can't really think of a third. Maybe you guys can remind me of something. But I really can't think of any opportunity that they had. I mean, Bozu in the chat box says they only had just over 1 XG in the game. In fact, I'm going to have a quick look at the XG for the game, just have a look at what ours and what theirs was as well. Let's just go into stats quickly. I mean, I'll share my screen so you guys can see it as well. Let's throw this up on the screen so you guys can have a look. Here we go. The game, Arsenal's XG 0.32. Well, I mean, Brighton's XG was 2.94 according to this. So I would say it was just over 1 because it's 2.94 according to Wisecout. 21 shots, 4 on target, 19% of those on target. I think they could have had a few shots that should have gone in, and eventually that just builds up, doesn't it, to the 2.94. than it was, which is way above what they're usually expected. It's not even way above what they usually expected, because Brighton have shown this season that they just aren't really good at finishing so far. And that's a big problem for us. Let me zoom in so it's easier for you guys to see. Let's scroll down. Why isn't it scrolling down? That's not. There we go. Okay, so the issue for me with the way in which we're conceding chances is in the wider positions, and why we're not kind of stopping the crosses that are coming in. Tomiyasu did it really well against Norwich and Burnley and Spurs, getting close to Mark Cucurella, but in terms of who plays in his position. But yesterday, Mark Cucurella in particular, specifically for Brighton, was brilliant. And it's annoying because I said this so many times. Like, if Arsenal want to sign someone on the left-hand side, Mark Cucurella would have been an excellent option. He was really good for Getafe, came through the La Masia Academy, has always been someone that's been impressive, despite not playing at the biggest of clubs. He was at Eibar for a time as well. But he was brilliant. The problem for Tomiyasu was that he was so isolated at times and so on his own at times because of the system. Brighton's system was able to overrun Arsenal, but we're focusing on the positives. So the way in which Gabriel and White have defended together was really good. I mean, you can't say too much more about that, to be fair. The two of them are forming a much better partnership. It was not toothless, even though Gabriel certainly did lose one during the game. And both of them dealt with situations really, really well. They were calm on the ball. They communicated well. There was only one time, I think, where Ben White's passing let him down, and that was when he passed it out straight to one of the Brighton midfielders who then countered immediately. But they were excellent in how they dealt with the attacks from Brighton and how they dealt with Neil Maupay and Leandro Trossard. And I never felt like we would concede, to be honest. I put a tweet out after the game in which I said I felt like we could have played another 90 minutes, and I still don't think we would have conceded. It was a very resolute defensive display, but beyond that, I'm trying to think. Emile Smith-Rowe didn't offer the goals and assists that he has, and he should have taken really the chance that he had when he was through on goal. I think to shoot straight at the keeper is characteristic of a player that isn't often in those opportunities. And I was hoping that he would put it to the right of the keeper, really curl the shot to the bottom left-hand corner across the goalkeeper rather than straight at him. But that is what you'd expect from a player like Smith-Rowe, who is still 21 years of age and developing, and it's not part of his ingrained kind of attributes of his game. So hopefully that's something that will improve with time. But it was a big, big chance that you'd hope that a player would take, and he didn't in that scenario. But besides that, he was probably our best player in the attacking third. Gabriel and White and Ramsdale are best players in the defensive third. And that's kind of where my positivity runs out, because it was a case of we defended for our lives for most of the game and had a couple of counter-attacks. But beyond that, and the lineup, to be fair, the lineup I thought was spot on. And a lot of us wanted that lineup. In fact, in our preview show, every single one of the four of us, me, Pablo, Dan, and Ojo, all picked that team, as I know a hell of a lot of other people did as well. So the actual lineup selection I thought was right, but then the negatives start to come forward, where the negatives come forward when we start to look at how we manage the game during the match, and Arteta's lack of change of the formation when it proved that it wasn't working. So whilst we can all sit here and go, yeah, that was definitely the formation that we wanted to see, that was the players that we wanted to see, we aren't coaches and we aren't managers, but we shouldn't be able to be sitting there going, Brighton are absolutely dominating us, we should probably change this, and it wasn't going to happen. So we'll have a look at what you're saying in the chat box to get your positives, and then we'll go through some of the other side of things. Let's scroll up to quite far up, because I want to get quite a few of your comments. Here we go. Positives. Let's go for the defence, says Black and Blanco. Yes. Gabriel and White, says Olu. John Bamford saying nothing. Not really true, is it? We didn't lose, it says Chris. Bungle says Gabriel was a pillar and a leader. Ramsdale and the defence, says Steve Stone. Gabriel and White, that's it, says Alfie. What about Ramsdale? I thought Ramsdale was a positive during the game. Chris says White and Gabriel's partnership is becoming a real deal. Ian says, in my humble opinion, it was a match against a side who are more sure of what to do on the pitch. Whenever team presses well, we cannot seem to cope with it. Matt says, I'm only disappointed that we didn't score because I would have loved to have seen the team do the crying celebration in front of Mopé. Wouldn't we all, mate? Wouldn't we all? Nikolai says the defence was pressured and they stayed together. This is something that we can build upon. When you've got a side that's got a few goals in them, like Arsenal don't seem to have right now, but you've got a very leaky defence, you get a situation like we found last season. Last season, we were shipping goals, absolutely shipping them. So the fact that this season we've got this strong foundation that we're building from does bode well in games going forwards, and we should be able to hopefully continue to challenge for our targets. We just need to sort that final third out because it's really not working at the moment. Nimish says, wasn't a bad point in my opinion. Fans always get carried away with big wins. Last season, we should have lost this game. Let's build on that defence. And that was a point that was brought up by a lot of people. Last season, and probably many seasons prior to this, we would have lost that game. You can't win every single game in the league. You just can't do that. You are going to have games like this. You look at other teams like Man United dropping points this weekend, the amount of teams that dropped points last weekend when we won against Spurs. You're not going to win every single game, no matter if you're Arsenal, Brighton, Wolves, or Manchester City. You can't have amazing performances every single week. And I know that we've not had amazing performances for a lot of this season, but in the way in which we defended and kept the point in that game, that could prove to be a difference maker because we've missed out on top four at times by a single point. So making sure you get a point when you don't look like you should deserve one. I mean, when you come out of a game with 0.32 XG in comparison to 2.94 XG of the opponent and you get a point, that's a positive. And it does go to show that your defense is being... Let's go further down. Let's talk about the other side of the game. Let's start off with Xhaka, because I think that's a point that I think a lot of people are very divided on, is Granit Xhaka and his lack of presence in the team. I agree, and I've got a more in-depth article coming out a little bit later on this morning, which I'll make sure to share. But I think it's ignorant to say we didn't miss him. I'll be flat out about it. To say that we didn't miss Xhaka, or that you're annoyed at seeing people say that we missed Xhaka, is ignorant, and I think it shows an agenda, to be honest, against the player. That's my blunt opinion about people who feel that he wasn't missed, because he was missed. Should we have a better player than Granit Xhaka? Absolutely. If there's an opportunity to upgrade on any player, we should upgrade upon them. Should we have a better player than Granit Xhaka? Yes, absolutely. But the problem is we have him, and we don't have better than him alongside Partey. Sambi Lokonga, I love him. I think he's going to be a great player. But he's 21, and he's just come to the Premier League from the Pro League, and it is a big, big step up, and he's very raw still. He is not the finished article. He is not better than Xhaka. He was, at the start of the season, like the first three games, you would say that Sambi Lokonga outperformed Xhaka in those first three matches. But I think that was more down to form than it was down to overall quality. Xhaka is better than Lokonga right now, overall, but Lokonga in the first few games did outshine Xhaka. But Xhaka returned against Spurs and showed what he can do. And it's tactically where we fall down without Xhaka. It's not specifically just him that we lack. It's just we lack someone that does the things that he does. We lack a left footer in the midfield. I thought the fact that Lokonga and Partey playing together, it really limited and restricted how we were able to break out on our left-hand side. Because what you typically have is you have Xhaka on the left, Partey on the right, a right footer on the right, a left foot on the left, which means you can feed those passing lanes out to the wider positions. Because we didn't have that, we had a right footer passing to the left, which was an incisive pass rather than an out-swinging pass, and so Tierney was much less effective. This is one of the big reasons as to why Arteta really does prefer to have a left-footed centre-back. It's the same thing. You want the left footers to pass outswinging balls through into your left back or your left winger because it enables you to run onto those passes. If you're a right-footed passer passing to the left-hand side, it curves inwards and it makes it much more difficult to control, especially during those conditions, and it slows the attack down. It enables the opposition more time to press and to turn over possession and to win the ball back. And so what happens is you often see the right-footed left-sided midfielder or the right-sided left-footed centre-back turning onto their right foot and passing further out to the right-hand side. And that's why Tierney was nearly invisible during the entire game, is because we just lacked that pass out to the left-hand side. It just wasn't happening for us during the game. And that's why we miss Xhaka. It's not to do with, for me, it's not to do with his leadership. It's not to do with his shooting from outside the box or his shouting or anything like that. It's just a tactical thing that we miss. It's just a tactical thing that we missed in the game. Honestly, if people are just going to come in here and bash over and over again with comments like that aren't offering anything, you're just going to be gone. You need to be constructive because, frankly, just coming into a chat box and just bashing Arsenal, bashing the manager with no context is just not fair. Right. So, you can just go. In terms of the tactical side of what we miss in Xhaka, that's what's clear for me. That's what's obvious for me, is that we miss that tactical thing that he brings to the game. And when we look at Sambi Lokonga, he has a long, long way to go. I'm not going to bash Sambi Lokonga. I'm not going to go, he was dreadful. He was terrible. I didn't think he had his best game. He's 21 years of age. We've got an average age of this team, I think it's 23, 24? And Sambi Lokonga is under that average age. He needs to improve a lot. And I actually thought he was better than Partey, Lokonga. He did more than Partey did. Partey was awful. Really poor. Really, really poor. And he's one of the experienced players. And you know how much I love Thomas Partey. I think he's a step above, on average, and he's raw quality, than pretty much everyone else on the pitch. But he was so poor that 21-year-old, inexperienced, coming to the Premier League for the first time, Lokonga was better than him. And contextually, that shouldn't happen. That should not happen. So I don't know why Partey played the way he did, but he just kept on trying to do things. He thought he thought he had so much more time on the ball. He played very La Liga, is what I would say. Because in La Liga, you as a player, in midfield especially, have so much more time on the ball than you do in the Premier League. And it was almost like Partey slipped into the mindset of playing in La Liga again, where you have more time to do what you want. He turned away from he thinks every time that you're going towards someone, he can just turn away from them. The problem is, in La Liga, players do step off. Players do give you more time. But in the Premier League, if you turn away from someone that's in front of you, there's someone else closing you down on the other side. And they nick the ball off you. And that happened, I think, 3 or 4 times to Thomas Partey. It's just a real big problem that, for me, it's not something I'm concerned. I say it's a big problem. I don't think it's a massive issue. I just think it's something that he needs to adjust and to not forget the kind of league that he's in. And because those two central midfielders, Lokonga and Partey, were really ineffective, Ødegaard, who was in front of them, just got nothing. Wasn't able to get anything. And the few times that he got on the ball was closed down very quickly because the movement just wasn't there. I think it'd be very harsh to look at that performance and go, oh, Ødegaard was terrible. Ødegaard was one of the biggest reasons why we didn't win the game. I don't think that's true. Because if you want a player like a number 10 to be influential on the game, like he can be, you need to give him more service. You need to move for him. If you compare the movement of Arsenal against Brighton compared to the movement of Arsenal against Spurs, it's night and day. The movement was so different. But what I will say about Ødegaard is I don't think he pressed anywhere near as much as he pressed in the other games. I think he got a little bit irritated by the fact he wasn't receiving the ball enough. And he just kind of dropped that performance level when you need players like that to step up. So that is a criticism, a fair criticism of him. So that's kind of the individual players. Aubameyang, isolated, very characteristic of what we've seen from him before. And yeah, we did look better when Lacazette came on. I think that was more to do with us growing into the game and Brighton getting a bit tired toward the end. And so we were able to get on the ball more. The like-for-like change was not something I was really in favour of, because the biggest criticism for me is Arteta in this game. Because these are the games where a quality, world-class, experienced coach changes things. These are the games in which a manager goes, right, I thought the 4-2-3-1, as I think all of us did, was the right way to set up. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Make a like-for-like change in regards to Lokonga coming in for Xhaka, start the game. But what really top quality managers do is that they assess the situation and they go, how are they dominating us? Which Brighton were. They dominated us in regards to possession, in regards to turnover, in regards to recoveries, in regards to shots on goal. And the way that you deal with that is that you need to try and change things to combat their successes. And their successes came, as we all know, through Marc Cucurella on the left and through some attacks centrally through the likes of Trossard and Neil Maupay and crosses coming in from the right-hand side from Veltman, which we really struggled to deal with. It was the wide areas. We really struggled with the wide areas. And that, as we saw against Chelsea, was always going to be the problem. Because when you play a back four against a back three with wing backs, you are always going to have a real tough time. And it's ironically what we did really well against Manchester City in our FA Cup run. If you remember back to that FA Cup run, and I think if I go back, let me just check the score against Chelsea in the FA Cup final. I know that Frank Lampard was manager, but what was the formation that Chelsea used during the game? I'm just trying to find out what their lineup was. Chelsea used a 3-4-3, and they used Azpilicueta, Zumas, Rudiger, Alonso, Kovacic, and Jorginho, and it was a very kind of balanced game. You look at the Manchester City game, where Arsenal were able to come out quite comfortably in that fixture. We played a 3-4-3, and we beat them. And it's just the way that a back three often just trumps a back four. And because if you can overload the fullbacks and get balls into the box, you're going to create chances all day long. Not only that, but the way in which we spread the play against Spurs and we were able to really kind of transition the ball from one side to the other really quickly, really stretch the Spurs back four. We weren't really able to get in the positions to do that against Brighton. But the problem was because they've got these three big centre-backs, as Ramsdale explained after the game, if you want to try and go long, you've got to make your pass almost exactly perfect to try and get any kind of possession in a long ball scenario. Playing out from the back is really hard from a back four standpoint, especially when your two central midfielders aren't really playing that well, which Lokonga and Partey weren't, especially Partey, and you can't get out. Then as soon as they turn over possession, they've got an immediate man over. They usually outnumber you by at least one or two players, and that means they're never going to lose the ball that easily. And you're left running backwards to try and get back into the positions that you need to be in. And so the problem is that Mikel Arteta didn't recognise this. And whilst you had people online going, bring on Lacazette for Aubameyang, bring on so-and-so. And I was going, no, let's bring on either one of Maitland-Niles or Cedric, change to a back three, put one of those two in a right wing-back position, move Tierney to a left wing-back role, take off one of Lokonga, Odegaard or Smith-Rowe, and move whoever's left into the left wing position, Aubameyang up top, Saka on the right. Then you've got two players in the wide areas. You don't have the overload in the wide position, so you can deal with the crosses much better. And you can actually counter more effectively because you've got overlapping runs and you've got two left footers on each side, or a right foot or two right footers on the right and two left footers on the left. But it was just like for like changes. I think the first change we made was Odegaard came off for Pepe. So you're taking off an attacking midfielder, moving your other winger into an attacking midfield position and putting Pepe back on the left. No change. And then in the end, Saka moved back to the left-hand side, which just doesn't work. I mean, it's really, really frustrating because Saka is so much better on the right and Pepe's really struggled and offered absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing when he came on, let's be real. He didn't offer anything. Then we made the change for Aubameyang for Lacazette. And Lacazette, because the Brighton were tiring by this point, we were able to get on the ball a bit more. We were able to get the ball up to Lacazette a bit more, and he was able to play the passes that he was. But we still didn't create anything of note, unfortunately. We still didn't create anything we needed because we still lacked the numbers in the wide areas. And that's what's really frustrating. That's what I get really annoyed about. And what makes me feel justified in my criticisms of Arteta is because whilst I think he's got some really good ideas, whilst I think he's got the right mindset when it comes to recruiting players, and he's shown that over his tenure, it's the in-game stuff that I get worried about. Because when I watch Chelsea, or when I watch Manchester City, or when I watch last season, not so much this season, Leicester, and I watch the managers in those games make changes to the formation, to the systems, to the style of the players that are on the pitch to try and combat what's going on, that's when I get frustrated because we just don't have that yet in Arteta. He's just not experienced enough at the moment in time to make these clear changes. And annoyingly, it only takes one game to try it. And it only takes one game for it to be a success, for you to build upon that and to learn to do it and to do it in a lot more games. But he has, I can't remember who said it. I think it was Hush, one of my colleagues over at the Arsenal Way. It might have been Umar, actually, and do watch our reaction to the game yesterday over on the Arsenal Way. But one of them said that Arteta has a very Wenger style of loyalty towards his team. It's a very kind of, I want to trust these players to get the job done, and I want to have my formation, my system vindicated. And that's what I think is the issue for me, is that he wants too much of the players to just go out and play the way they've practiced on the training ground rather than in-game recognising the mistake, recognising where we're being battered and change the formation corresponding to that. So they're my criticisms, but we will go through plenty of your comments in the chat box as well. So let's have a look at what you're saying. Ilyas says Laka changed the game when he came on, held the ball up well, and sprayed some good passes to the final third. I think that if Laka had come on 20 minutes earlier, like so many people were calling for, I don't think he would have done what he did in those last 10 to 15 minutes. I think the way in which he was able to get on the ball more was because Brighton were tiring by this point, and so we were able to get the ball up to him better. I feel like if we'd have switched formation at half-time and gone and matched them at 3-4-3, not matched them, but matched the back three specifically and gone 3-4-3, I think Aubameyang would have had a lot more joy. So I think Aubameyang would have got more chances. I genuinely don't think that you can pin the big change that was necessary on Lacazette for Aubameyang, because to your striker, you need to get them the ball more often. And we weren't doing that. We weren't getting the ball to the strikers more often. And the way we needed to do that was by matching their back three. And against Chelsea, we didn't do it. And today, we didn't do it. And it was frustrating. Ian says, could not agree more, Tom. Absolutely spot on. And that is why we will stumble time after time. Neil says, Laka should come on earlier. We're kicking the ball long to Aubameyang. And every time we didn't win the second ball, that changed with Laka, and the Pepe should have come on earlier, the direct threat. I don't agree with either point, Neil. I don't think Laka coming on earlier changes anything, because I don't think we have enough possession still. It's a like-for-like change. And Pepe coming on didn't do anything. Pepe didn't change anything when he came on. He came on, took a poor corner, made a couple of decent runs, but was never found because we didn't have enough players in the attacks. Didn't change anything. Making like-for-like changes nothing about a performance. The only way you're going to change anything is hoping that your opponent changes based upon the subs, and that they panic and that they make mistakes, or the manager of the opposition makes mistakes with how he reacts to your substitutions, which Potter didn't do. And by the way, I haven't mentioned Potter yet. He's doing fantastic. Absolutely brilliant right now. And I was very critical of Graham Potter last season, and I felt I was quite right to be critical of Graham Potter last season, because he won one home game in the entirety of 2020 with a team that I felt was much better. I felt he was underperforming with the Brighton side that I felt contained a lot better players than they were being given credit for. And I actually thought they were underperforming. This season, more good signings, Cucurella, Enoch and Wepu coming in. He's bringing through some good young guys as well, the likes of Murder being brought into the team. Obviously, you've got the likes of Basuma. Lamptey is not even playing at the moment. I feel like if they had a real good striker, they could be a genuine force. They could, if in January they can get hold of a clinical forward, they could be a real good push for a good top half finish in the table. That's all they're lacking right now, Brighton. They've got a really good defence, really good style and system, and they've got the perfect players to do it. I also feel like if they gradually move Lamptey into a right wing-back role, they could find themselves having as much joy as they are on the left with Cucurella as they can have on the right. So we'll see if that changes. But yeah, you have to say that it's taken him time, Potter, to really integrate what he wants. And that's one of the big things when people say that Potter should be brought in at Arsenal, is because I think they would struggle with the amount of time that it's taken for Potter to get the best from Brighton. If you look at his tenure over Brighton, I think he was quite slow at the beginning. He wanted to get some more of his players in, but he's gradually got his system implemented. And that's the issue I think that Arsenal fans would find, and that while they're clamouring for Potter to be appointed now, if he was to come into Arsenal, it would take time again for him to implement his style, his system, his players that he wants, because we'd change completely what we're going from now into a new system. Would I be against Potter being brought in? Again, I've said for some time I will hold my judgment till the end of the season, but it's looking very, very positive right now. But I still don't think we're changing manager anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Let's go to Ange, who says, fine margins, but how much did we miss Xhaka? We need to appreciate what he does. Great defensive display. We're no longer a soft touch. Again, talked about that earlier on, so you can find my comments on Xhaka early on. Paul says, would you agree that Arteta might have made changes sooner if we still had water breaks during the game? He used to use them effectively. I mean, people may laugh at that question, but he did use those water breaks very effectively during games. But it can't be that. It can't be that. Like, you can't turn around and say that he needs water breaks to be a good manager. Yes, he used them very well, but no. You can't use that. Uzo says, I wouldn't blame Arteta much. I think he wanted the players to have consistency with the same formation. That's fine. So do I, Uzo. I want to see consistency with the back four. I want to see those back four maintaining a stable kind of relationship. But the thing is if it's not working, you got to change it. If what you're doing isn't having any impact, you have to change it. You can't just sit and pray and hope that what you've put out there is going to do the business when what you can see and what we can all see isn't working. That's the big issue for me. Matt says, how long do we give Arteta with this young team if we're not in Europe? If we don't get into European football this season, he has to go. That's the absolute minimum requirement. You've spent £150 million this summer. You spent upwards of £75 million last summer. We've brought in the players that he wants. You have to get top six. You have to get top six. If you don't get top six, you have to go. It's as simple as that. Rich says, hey, Tom, a bit late to the stream. Sorry, was a bit disappointed. We didn't win. Feel like we need to be winning those games to make it top four. Thankfully, Mrs. wasn't too bad. She's sad with the draw. Rich, I know. Yeah, of course. Your other half is a Brighton fan. I think Brighton will be fine this season. They should be disappointed they didn't win. But what I would say is they need to stop taking shots from stupid positions. They need to be better in their build-up play. They're rushing things. I feel like if they take that extra pass rather than taking an earlier shot, they might find themselves scoring a few more goals. But they do need a better forward. They do need a better striker than Mopé. They need someone who's a bit bigger, someone who's going to hold up the play more. And weirdly, like if they had Lokonga playing really well, I feel like Lokonga could be that player, but he's just not good enough, is he? But I feel like he's the perfect style of striker that they could do with if he was only a bit better than what he is and what they thought he was going to be when they signed him from PSV. Vuk says, the midfield yesterday let us down. They put numbers in at midfield. Partey was left on his own, as was Lokonga, often went to the left. As a result, the attack was isolated. I mean, Partey and Lokonga need to combat that better. Yes, the manager could change things by playing the 3-4-3, but Lokonga and Partey weren't great. Lokonga was better than Partey, but neither of them were great. Decision-making, positioning was really off. The style of passing was off. The way in which we didn't relieve pressure on our players was really poor. And I don't think you can excuse those two from the performance. Sahil says, Tom, then there is a debate that Arteta constantly chops and changes formations and it doesn't help players and there's no winning for anyone. Sahil, I'm not saying we need to chop and change formations. I wanted to see us start with that formation yesterday. It's about how you change things in-game. You can revert to the 4-2-3-1 for the next game against Crystal Palace if you want, or the 4-3-3. But it's not about chopping and changing formations. Sahil, it's about managing a game that's getting away from you, that you're being dominated in, and so you change things. You're not going to get criticised for chopping and changing the formation in-game. If we switch to a 3-4-3 at the start of the match, then you've got a bit of an argument, but not when you change it in-game, because that's how you react to an opposition. You change the style. It's about being pragmatic, as Harrison says perfectly there. Matt says, managers have to adapt, and I just don't see Arteta doing this. Amadeep says, Tierney was massive last season and still a bit of a massive upgrade on Tavares. He's obviously, I wouldn't be starting Tavares. I think if you watch that game and thought Tavares needs to play, I don't agree. The only way that I would bring Tavares in is if you were to say move Tomiyasu to right wing back, play Ben White, Gabriel, Tierney, and then Tavares at left wing back. That's the only way I would agree with bringing him in. So there you go. Tom, you were spot on with the analysis of the game. Did the weather make passing very difficult? The weather is always the same for both teams. That's all I say about that. Is that I thought it would actually suit us better because it would allow us to play more slick, quick passing. But it's the same for both teams, and you can't use the weather as an excuse, unfortunately. The only thing you can mention is obviously if you're, as Ramsdale talked about, kicking the ball long into the wind, that's an issue. But then play it on the floor, play out from the back. It's as simple as that. Brad says Lokonga played well, but struggled to do the Xhaka. I don't think he played well. I thought he was better than Partey, but I thought both of Partey and Lokonga were off. I don't think they were dreadful. I think Partey was dreadful. I don't think Lokonga was dreadful. I thought he was fine. I thought he was fine, Lokonga. I didn't think he was good. I didn't think he was bad. I just think they both didn't have the impact on the game that they needed. And I think that Lokonga, as you say there, Brad, wasn't able to do what Xhaka's able to do, quite simply because he's not left-footed. And it sounds really basic, but sometimes you do lack a left footer in the midfield, which is why I personally would go to the 4-3-3. There's what a lot of people like to do on social media or on their YouTube channels or whatever is to sit and bash without not really offering any solutions. So here's your solution. You go to the 4-3-3, you play Partey as the single number 6, and you draw Ødegaard and Smith Rowe back into number 8 roles. How does that help? Well, it helps because you've then got the left footer in Ødegaard playing that number 8 role. You've got the right footer in Smith Rowe. And then I think, personally, if Saka is fit, you put Martinelli on the left and you put Saka on the right. Martinelli can bring us some more goals. He's a right footer on the left-hand side, which gives us balance with Tierney on his left foot and with the left foot of Martin Ødegaard as well. I wouldn't bring Pepe into the team. I just wouldn't bring Pepe into the team. I'm increasingly really kind of struggling with the idea of Pepe staying at Arsenal long term. I think that, he'll give you an amount of goals and assists, but I think he's being really shown without those Europa League fixtures that it's a lot harder to rack up any goal contributions. And that's a problem. I mean, if we look back, people talk about the amount of goal contributions that Nicolas Pepe brings to the team. But I do think that without the Europa League, those stats are not being anywhere near as padded as they were. I mean, he's got a goal and assist in the EFL Cup this season. And other than that, it's just the one assist, which he got very fortunately against Norwich. Just scrolling down a little bit more for last season. The one assist in the Premier League, like you need more from your wide player. Scored 10 goals, which is good. Try and look at the 10 goals. Where did the 10 goals come from? Sheffield United, Everton, Southampton, Wolves, Leicester, and then obviously scored 4 goals on the last 2 game days. So that kind of, So across the season, when the games didn't mean anything, that's a problem. And he got 6 goals and 4 assists in the Europa League. So it's a problem for me because I think we need someone that's going to give you more. We don't have that. I'm not saying Martinelli's the solution to those problems. I'm not sure that Martinelli's going to give it to you, but I just don't trust Pepe at the moment. I really don't trust Pepe to bring us the goals and assists that we need across the season. And I think if those last 2 games that meant absolutely nothing in the context of the league last season, where people can say, well, he scored 10 goals last season, but 4 of those goals came in the last 2 games against opponents that it meant nothing in the regards to actually competitive fixtures. The pressure was off. It was done. So I have a real problem with that left-hand side. I think it should be Martinelli over Pepe because I think we should be investing more time in Martinelli than Pepe. I think Pepe's been given plenty of opportunities. And I think that we should now be investing more time in Martinelli than Pepe. It's as simple as that for me. But I think that I really do. I don't know what he does. I know that I do. Actually, that's a lie. I do know what he does. He likes to cut in on his left foot and take these shots, but he's not an accomplished dribbler as we thought. I think in Liga with Lille, playing on the counter-attack, allowing yourself a lot more space to run in behind, he's good at that. But in a possession-based team in the Premier League, I just don't think it's working. And if an offer came in January or in the summer for Pepe, I'd probably take it. And I'd look to move on and just go It's not worked. The Pepe experiment has not worked, and I'd move on from there. So there you go. Abote says if ESR gave Pepe that pass, he will score. How was he supposed to give him that pass? Watch that situation back. Look at the positioning, the fantastic positioning of the Brighton defender. He's never getting that pass to Pepe. The amount of people that said, why haven't you passed it? Because the defender was right there blocking any form of pass. He would have lost possession. Emile Smith-Rowe did the right thing, took the ball away from the defender and had a shot. Should score in that situation. He was never getting that pass to Pepe. Never getting that pass to Pepe whatsoever. The defender dealt with that situation perfectly. Perfectly. Steve Stone says, like some others, I'm concerned with fitness levels, seeing as only one game per week. Some of our players look spent. I mean, we are pressing teams a hell of a lot, like in the last 3 games. So I'm not surprised it was a bit lackluster. Maybe this international break will come at a perfect point. Seal says, Tom, now looking at that, do we need a number 6 or someone in the Xhaka mould for more of a deep line playmaker? We just need a left-footed player in the midfield that's going to give us what we need, which is a lot more passing out to the left and more direct passing. We need to find that left footer. I think that's what we need. We need to find that left foot or someone that's as confident on their left foot as they are on the right. Oh, I'd love a Santi Cazorla. Venkatesh says, Tom, Lille play counter-attack. How ironic. Pepe slows down our counter-attack. Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? I mean, Lille were really good in their season with Pepe at attacking on the counter, having the ball played in behind, a lot more space. But yeah, it's strange. His touch is really... I'm really surprised how bad his touch is at times. It's really poor. By the way, Aubameyang's touch yesterday was dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. I know it was wet and, you know, even the things he was taking on his chest just bounced off it like it was a basketball. Like, it was ridiculous how poor the touch was. It was crazy. Gooner for Life says, Tom, look back. He had a wonderful opportunity to pass. I'll look at it back. In fact, I'll do it right now. Emile Smith-Rowe. I can't show it to you on the screen because it would be copyright, but I can watch the shot that he took against Brighton. Shots. 1 shot out of 1. Let me just remove that. So pass comes through. Saka plays the ball through. Or is it Partey, I think? He's running through. Defender. There is no chance to pass. There is no chance to pass that ball. I don't think he... Hold on. It's not even, that's Saka. It's not even Pepe. That's Saka, isn't it? I've got it on a really small screen, so I can barely tell. Yeah, I don't think Smith-Rowe does anything wrong in that situation. And for one, I need to make this full screen. I know this is really boring for you guys because you can't see. You can't see what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's a really small screen. I can't tell. But that's, yeah. I don't think you can turn around at all and say that he can pass in this moment. Just scrolling it back. Defender, I think it might be Duffy. Can't tell from this angle. He's number 24 for Brighton. Whoever that is was excellent in that scenario. So it is Saka. I thought it was Saka. I don't know what he was meant to do in that situation that was any different to what he did, because I think it's Duffy is dealing with that situation as expertly as he can do. No Xhaka, no control, says Papoose in the chat box. Our passing was atrocious, says John. Minnie says, if we had a taller striker, the ball would have stuck more in the midfield. Ifs and buts. As a friend of mine would say, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a very Merry Christmas. Nishith says that was a difficult pass, but if Emile Smith-Rowe dropped his shoulder and tried to pass in between defenders, it would have worked, but needed to be too accurate. It was a really hard situation. I really don't think that was an issue. Why is nobody talking about the non-penalty on Emile Smith-Rowe? Oh, the one where he kicks the ball away off the field and then goes over. I didn't think that was a pen. I thought that would have been a very soft penalty if it was given. I mean, if you look at the one that Gabriel had against Spurs, like that was more contact than Emile Smith-Rowe had. I don't think that was a penalty. Dawson says, we did not concede. We did not miss Xhaka. Dawson, I think you need to have a look at Lokonga's performance and see how Tierney was affected severely by the lack of the passes out to the left-hand side. We miss Xhaka massively. Matt G says, I'm trying to explain to my missus that we aren't just a group of people watching Tom watch a game of football. I'm sorry, I can't show you it because of copyright. But I will talk about it in our tactical kind of breakdown over on the Arsenal Way. And that will be one of the examples that we use because I don't think that was an issue whatsoever. I mean, it says, Tom, would you bring El Neni in for Lokonga? No, I wouldn't, because I don't think that solves anything. El Neni's another right-footed player. It doesn't change tactically the game, and I'd rather invest more time in Lokonga. What I would do is I'd play Partey at 6, take Lokonga out, and put Smith Rowe and Erdegaard as the number 8s and play 4-3-3. Bring Martinelli in on the left-hand side. That's what I would do. I don't see it happening. Amandeep says, thoughts on Ainsley Maitland-Niles coming in instead of Martinelli? Is Arteta safety manager first? At that point in the game, I'm definitely bringing on Maitland-Niles all day long. I'm risking losing a point when Brighton are on top in those final minutes. No chance am I bringing on Martinelli. Absolutely no chance, because we need to secure that point. At that point, it's more important to not lose than it is to try and win. All day long in the 88th minute or whatever it was, I'm not bringing on an attacker and risking anything else. So I thought that was a fine substitution. But the problem is that we should have brought on Maitland-Niles at half-time and switched to 3-4-3. That's what we should have done, but we didn't, and I think we paid the price. Do you think this manager got sacked? Saka's not injured, Daniel. He's fine. Brad says, I suspected we might struggle when pre-game Arteta brought up the point of complacency when asked about carrying over the confidence from last week. Had he seen players getting like that? Obviously, people are going to be well up for a North London derby. A cold night away on the South Coast, just psychologically, it's difficult. It's not an excuse, and we should be better than that. But it's annoying that they get up for the North London derby and then can't get up for the game against Brighton. That's a frustration. John says, Partey and Sambi must shoot sometimes to keep defenders honest and open passing lanes, but they can't shoot. What to do? Yeah, I mean, sure, one shot from Partey in a game is fine, but 4 or 5 from those ranges, no. Just no. You can't. Sky, I disagree. Not losing the game is more important than trying to win it in the final minutes in that context of that game. Just Maitland-Niles was the right sub. Asa says, hi, Tom. Do you think people are forgetting the fact that we have played Burnley and Brighton away without conceding a goal? No, I don't. I think they're just disappointed that we didn't win, is what I think, Asa, which people are entitled to be disappointed that we didn't win. But I think really that when we look back at the season, we may really be thankful for that point against Brighton, because not losing that game, not losing that momentum, not dropping we're now 5 games unbeaten, was really, really important. So as I said before, not losing was more important than trying to win in those final moments all day long. Saka should have also passed to Aubameyang in the first half. I don't know what incident you're talking about, to be honest, but you might be right. I just can't remember. Everything's a bit of a blur now. Matt says, do you think Partey was aiming for the wrong seagulls with his shooting? Ben White's best game? Absolutely. Papu says, Partey decision-making is not good without Xhaka. Leon says, Ainsley Maitland-Niles should have been the first sub on, energy in the midfield. I wouldn't have put him in the midfield. I would have put him at right wing-back and switched to 3-4-3. That's what I would have done with him. Pepe is not good at decision-making. He needs to improve it. Mara is a similar player, but he makes the decision of when to pass and when to cut in really well and fast. I can't disagree with you, Sahil. I think that's spot on. I think we've probably eked out as much as we can from that game, and so therefore we're going to wrap things up. Thank you ever so much, guys, for tuning in. It's an absolute pleasure to speak with you, as it always is. Hopefully there'll be some fun content coming out for you all today on the Arsenal Way, so make sure you're subscribed over there and you're subscribed here. We'll have a podcast coming out within the next 24 to 48 hours, and I should be joining the boys over on the Arsenal Way tomorrow night as well. Tonight is the return of me playing six-a-side football, so I'm very much looking forward to that. But it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you guys as always. Stay positive. Don't get too annoyed after that result. We didn't lose, and Brighton were excellent, and we came away with a point. it's annoying. I think the fact that there's the international break probably affects people's moods more than the fact that we didn't win, because we've got to wait 2 weeks until we can play again. But don't be down about that result. I thought that considering how Brighton were and considering how we were, coming away with a point was really key and important. There are criticisms, and I think we've covered those, but I think that the way that we've defended, I think that the way that Aaron Ramsdale's having an amazing effect on the team is brilliant. And I think that there is hope that we've really got a solid defence to build a foundation from. I think we know what our problems are. I think we know where the issues are. We just now need to solve them. And fingers crossed we can do that. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend. Don't let the Arsenal game ruin it too much, and try to involve yourself into some more fun things on a Sunday. See you later, guys. Drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, and of course, as always, up the Arsenal.